Welcome to the Agent Protocol Ultimate Open House Training. We're so glad you're here because this community isn't built on hype. It's built on strategies that actually work, real systems, and real results. Agent Protocol is about helping you build a business that grows because of who you are. And today, you're about to learn from a true giant in our industry, Garth Ward. Isn't just great at open houses, he is a force. This man has produced over $1.3 billion with a B in real estate sales, and a huge amount of that came directly from open houses done with precision and intention. Garth has turned what most agents treat as busy work into a predictable client generation machine, and today he's opening up that playbook for you. Get ready. This is stuff that changes production. Let's get started. Welcome to the Agent Protocol Ultimate Open House Training. We've got Garth Ward, who's done over $1.3 billion in sales, and we're so excited for him to share some of the strategies that have worked for him. And so we're so excited to have you, Garth. How are you doing?
I am doing phenomenal, and I'm excited to impart some hopefully useful knowledge on everybody today and really get into what implementation does in our businesses. I know a lot of agents have kind of shoved open houses by the wayside, thinking that there's really no opportunities there. But I'm here to completely dispel that myth, having helped thousands of agents grow their businesses to multiple six figures, just utilizing this singular point of prospecting by utilizing a unique approach.
We're so ready. And one question I have for the lister right now is how many of you have had visitors in your open house and they have never heard from you again? How many visitors have you had that you said hi? You may have gotten their information, but you never heard from them again. And throughout this training, I want you guys to think about that. Garth, you have an incredible system, an incredible strategy around open houses. Let's get started. What got you into starting to do open houses?
Well, we got to go all the way back 13 years ago when I first started the business. I had no money, no connections, no family in the business, and really no idea of what to do. But one thing that I did know is I should go talk to the top producers to see what they're doing and how they're winning. And I kept hearing the same thing repeated over and over again: talk to your sphere of influence. My problem was I was a 19-year-old with no connections, no friends with any resources, and I didn't have a sphere of influence that would ever buy or sell houses, at least not for the next decade. So I sat back and said, okay, well, what are they doing that doesn't cost any money that can get results? And I talked to my managing broker, and he said, well, you could cold call, door knock, open houses, whatever. And I said, okay, well, which one's going to get me closer to the client the quickest? And I thought open houses is the way to do that. And then I went back to the top producers in my office and I asked them, well, how many open houses are you running, and how many clients are you getting from those open houses? And almost invariably, every single one of them told me, it's not worth your time to do open houses. I only close one a year. Or I talked to another lady. She goes, I only close like 2 a year from open houses. Another lady, oh, there's only one. I talked to another guy. I closed 2 or 3 a year from open houses. It's not really that helpful. But then I dug a little bit deeper. I said, okay, you're all closing 1 to 3 deals from open houses every single year. How is that actually happening? And so I sat back and I said, okay, from a realistic standpoint, how much prospecting does that require to make happen? And I talked to each one of them and I basically broke down their averages, and I get a little bit nerdy about this stuff. So I sat back and I said, okay, how many opens do you host every year? And then every single one of them was like, I don't know, because they don't run their numbers. And so I said, okay, well, walk me through a typical month. I'll hold an open house on a Saturday, Sunday, then I won't the next weekend, then I'll hold one on a Saturday, then I won't the next weekend, then I'll hold a Saturday and Sunday. And I broke it down and I basically distilled it to the fact that basically all of these top producers that were thinking that was a not valuable system were getting a closing from open houses at approximately every 16 to 24 open houses that they held. So I sat back and I thought, well, what if I could just do 16 to 24 open houses quicker? I optimized it and I did it a little bit more efficient than they do. Would I be able to get more than them? And even if I can't, I should be able to sell a home every single month just doing opens. So I sat back and I formulated a plan. And that's where I came up with the open house strategy that I utilize today.
And one thing I really like about this is so many agents, they get into, okay, you know what? I'm going to start my open house. I'm going to do an open house this weekend, but they don't have a system. They don't have a process, and they just hope. They hope something happens. They don't even know what to say. They don't have the right conversations.
Yeah.
And so you really do need a system going into this. So when it comes to open houses for you, how long did it take you to get your first client?
From open houses specifically, that took me 2 months from getting my first client from an open house. It wasn't my first deal. My first deal was from an expired call, but that's before I started really honing in on the best practices. And to be fair, it took me 2 months, but I wasn't optimized yet. At that point, those 2 months, I was holding an open house every Saturday and Sunday. So effectively, I held, what was that? 16 open houses, and it got me one result. But what I didn't know yet was, as I started playing around with it, as I started growing a team and then a brokerage and asking all these people to split test and keep metrics, I ran into a way to optimize it. And instead of holding one open house on a Saturday and a different one on Sunday, because I realized, why would I hold the same open house and split the audience? Why don't I just hold even more and even more? And what if I could make them shorter? How short can I make them before I start losing people that don't show up because it's too short? And I played around with that for years until I landed on the 8 open house in a weekend strategy, which now leads most agents to getting a actual client every single or every other weekend, only 2 to 4 weeks in, because it does take some time to learn it. It takes some time to learn the process inside of it. And it takes divorcing yourself from prospecting in ways that are incongruent with the actual outcome that you want. Most of the time, I find people that do open houses want to do these, what I call mega open houses, where it's lots of marketing and lots of strategy and lots of stuff on the upfront and lots of door knocking and other things connected to it. And that's really not exactly connected to the same prospecting strategy that this can be, because that's more tied into farming. And that's a different end result that you're looking for. And people will confuse the two. If the goal is a client quickly and a client that's ready to go now, the actions need to be different. And that's how we ended up stumbling upon this. Well, I guess not stumbling, statistically finding our way to this pattern.
I love it. Agents, I'm going to ask you a question. What would change for you if you had the same blueprint Garth used to generate over $1.3 billion in sales? What would change for you, right? Well, how would that change your life? I know it would change my life drastically back when I was 25 and just trying to figure out, okay, go do open houses. Well, what do I do? What do I do? So many questions. So let me help the listeners out a little bit. When it comes to someone walking into an open house, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much more than just starting an open house. But when a visitor walks into an open house, what are some important questions that you ask in order to get them to engage, in order to get their contact information? What does that look like?
Well, let's start out with why it is absolutely different than what every other person does. Number one, I am taking them on a tour. I'm not going to be the agent that sits at the kitchen counter or sits at a table, clicking away on my laptop saying, take a look around. I'll talk to you at the end. That is a school of thought, but it's not the one that converts the most potential clients. So I take assumptive control of the process. Once you're in control of the process, it's easier to dictate flow of conversation, likely outcomes of buyer consultations on the spot. So the second they walk up to the door, I'm greeting them right at the door. I'm not greeting them 5-10 paces into the house. I'm greeting them at the door. I'm not asking them how they found the house. It used to be that you would walk in, you'd greet yourself, hey, I'm Garth, how'd you find the place? We know how they found the place. They found it on some sort of third-party platform and they saw it online. They clicked GPS and it took them right to the house. That is why and how they found it. They didn't find it from signs 99% of the time. They found it online. So why even ask the question? So I say, hey, glad that you're here. Where would you like to start? Assuming that we are going to tour, I've already pre-mapped the optimal tour process in the house right when I get there and I'm turning on the lights. So I start where they would like. From there, I tour the rest of the house in the way that I would like them to, so that we end at the point that allows me to give a consultation should the need arise. So throughout that process, I'm asking them surrounding questions. What's your timeline? Do you already live here? Are you leasing now? Why are you looking to buy, etc. Never asking if they have an agent, because if you ask them if they have an agent, the answer is yes, even if they don't, because they don't want you to press. If they actually have an agent, they will tell you by your surrounding questions. Yes, our agent sent it to us. Great. They actually have an agent. Oh, have you delved into financing? By the way, when I ask this question, it's couched in a very specific way. I don't say, are you pre-approved? Do you have a pre-approval letter? It's kind of a brash question when you just met somebody, and it makes me kind of a little defensive. You don't think I can afford it. So what I do is I couch it like this. Have you delved into financing, or are you planning to pay for it with cash? I specifically ask that question knowing that 98% of people will not be buying it in cash, but by me adding that tail to that phrase, it makes it feel like I don't know, and I'm not going to assume your financial status, and maybe you could. And that honestly helps elevate my relationship with them in that small statement. If they haven't delved into financing, I know that they're earlier on into the process. If they have and they already have everything dialed in, I know that I can be a little bit more elevated in my conversation if I'm to get to that consultation, which, by the way, should happen on the spot. It should not happen later. It should not be, here's a Starbucks gift card, I'll talk to you after my open. It should not be, let's talk on Wednesday.
So the next question I have for you is, do you just take any house to do an open house for, or are you systematic on the house that you host an open house for?
Yeah, I mean, in the process of finding 8 different open houses in a weekend, and they're all different houses, there's a strict process that I take it through, or a protocol, if you will. And what it is fairly basic. It doesn't have to be super comprehensive, but it's simple. It needs to be within a 15% variability of the median price range of the area. This does not work at the higher or super lower ends of the market. This works in approximately the average in your market center. Now, from there, I only look at vacant properties. I only look at properties that don't have gated entrances or condos or high rises. None of that allowed either, because I don't want to run into an owner and get caught up into a conversation with them and deal with representation issues and things like that. I don't want the owner to randomly be there. I don't want all of the extra issues that come along with that. Now, I've established it's properly priced, or at least within the realm of properly priced. It's vacant. It doesn't have a gate. And the marketing has to be good. Doesn't have to be the best in the world, but it has to be good. Ideally, if all of those things are connected and it's a new listing, that's gold. If
That's
it's
key,
not
though.
new,
How many days on market would you suggest taking an open house for?
less than 10 if you can find it. If it's less than 10, it's still a win. If it is not less than 10, look for properties that have recently price reduced, especially in the market right now. I'm finding that agents are not holding their open houses after the first one. They'll hold the first one, and then, it goes 30 days, 45 days, and their team doesn't want to hold it either. But then they do a price drop that's meaningful. It's a 5-10% price drop, and they're not holding it open anymore. That's gold too, because you're reaching a different buyer pool and a different buyer pool audience. Now, when we found all of those things in conjunction with each other, that's step 1. Step 2, I want to find properties that are closely located and similarly priced, because I'm not just going to win based off of talking to more people, seeing more floor plans, and understanding the product. I'm going to actually physically run into the same potential clientele over and over again in the same weekend, increasing the likelihood that we work together, because I'm omnipresent and attached to almost every property that they want to see.
You've shared a story before about how people will come to one open house and then you see you at another open house and then see you at another open house, which highly increases the likelihood of them seeing you as the local expert. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you that story. Actually, I worked with these. I didn't work with them yet, and so what happened was, is I see these people at the open house. They kind of snub me off. I always start with the assumption that I can tour them, and they were like, "No, no, 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 we're gonna walk it." Da 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 da. They were kind of rude to me. It's fine. They looked around the house. They left. Couple hours go by. I'm at a different one, not the next house that I held, but the one after that. They come into that open house like, "Hey, it's you again." I'm like, "Yeah, you guys want a tour?" "No, we do. That's okay." And that's okay. Then the next day, they come into another one of my open houses and they're like, "It's you again. Are you at all of these?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why aren't we working together already? Can I give you a tour now?" And they're like, "Sure." And so we started walking around the property. We started talking, and then they did ultimately end up becoming a client. And they were extremely negative. I always keep a running point likelihood status of whether a client's going to work with me um, based on the affinity that I feel between us. And I'm always keeping a running count, 1 to 10. They started at like a 1 or a 2. And after seeing me 3 separate times, it was an easy eight right when we saw each other again, and then it ended up becoming clients of mine. And I do think that that's a hyper important little tidbit there, because I always get people to say, "Well, if it's a short open house, what happens if there's multiple parties that come in at the same time?" That's why you need a running likelihood of whether they're going to work with you or not. And if that number is a 6 or lower and another group comes through, that's when you become the other agent. Take a look around. I'm going to go greet these guys. I'll connect with me when you're done. Then you pivot. If they are an 8 or higher, you don't pivot, because the likelihood that that person's going to be at 8 or higher is low. That's when you say to the new group, "Hey, take a look around. Let me know if you have any questions when you're done," because you need to basically hedge your bets. Which one's going to be more likely to ultimately become a client?
I love that. All right, last two questions. At what point do you ask them for their contact info? And then the second question is, what does the follow up look like?
Okay. These two are blended together, and I love it because it is something that maybe you guys haven't ever heard of before. So here's number one. I'm only asking for their information when I'm setting a second appointment with them. So you maybe never heard of this before, but here's how I work. If I don't already have a second appointment planned, I don't even want your contact information, because of the scale at which I'm doing this. Otherwise, it's too many random numbers, too many random people, too much random follow up with people that don't have high intent. So what happens is this: say everything goes perfectly throughout the open and I get them to say yes to a buyer consultation. I'm doing it on the spot, at the kitchen, at the main hub, at the main living room, wherever I've set up my hub space. And I am doing the consultation on the spot. I'm doing it in less than 5 to 6 minutes, giving them all of the information that they could possibly want. From there, I've already identified where they're at in the financing process, etc. Let's say they don't already have something set up. Here's what I'm doing. I'm also laying anchors while I'm having that consultation to the fact that we're already going to get connected, and that I'm going to be looping them in with a lender, right? During talking about the pre-approval process, talking about the down payments and the different things, I said, "Oh, and don't worry, I'm going to connect you with the lender," and da 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 da. At the end of the consultation, if they ask me for a card or something like that, there's almost no need. I just say, "Yeah, remember, I'm going to loop you in with the lender." Let's say it's like a husband and a wife. And I say, "Okay, great. What's your number?" And I look down, and I don't look back up till they start saying numbers. Then I put that information in. "And what's your number?" And then I put it in. And then I say, "I'm going to loop us all in with the lender right now. When do you think you can have the application back to the lender?" And, I would say my lender's name, and I would say, "Hey, just submit that. You'll get the application at some point today. When do you think you could have like your tax documents, income documents into them?" Let's say we're meeting on a Sunday. They say, "Well, we should be able to have all that done definitely by Tuesday." "Okay, how about we give you a little bit of a buffer and we meet our next meeting on Thursday? How does that sound?" "Yeah, we should be done by Thursday." "Great. We'll have an approval letter in hand, and our next meeting will be definition of criteria. We're going to do it on Zoom. What's the best email for you?" They give me the email. I send them the invite to that there, and I say, "Did you get the invite?" "Great. Make sure to approve that." They approve it. Done. So there's no follow-up needed, except after they leave the open house, I give it 30 or so minutes, video message. "Hey, thanks so much for stopping by the open house. I really look forward to helping you guys in your journey. I look forward to our meeting here on Thursday, and I hope that insert lender's name here, has a great conversation with you and can answer all of your questions and make sure that the process is smooth. Boop, send. So now they have a text message. It's texted inside of that massive group text. We've already set up our secondary meeting, and we've already had a buyer consultation before they've even left the open house. So when they go to another open house, they're going to meet an agent that is nowhere near as dialed in to that specific type of process. And they won't get a consultation out of them. They won't have a lender immediately connected or have another appointment approved, which drastically increases my likelihood that I capture them, because people's consumer behavior goes from, we're going to go to 5 open houses today. And if I'm the first or fourth or third open house, they're still going to see other agents after me. And I want to lock them down as fast and as efficient as possible by showing and articulating that I'm competent and I have process to follow along with. Just like with agents and you guys wanting to learn and get better and hone in your skills, buyers and sellers don't just want to hire somebody that they like, know, and trust, which they do. But if they can like, know, and trust you, and they know you have a process that is repeatable, that gets great results, they're going to sign up for that every single time.
And that leads me to my last comment. Friends, thank you so much for listening. This is Garth Ward, over $1.3 billion in sales. He led a brokerage of hundreds of agents, now has an organization of several hundred. If you want to partner up with Garth and myself, there's going to be a link below that I'd love for you to click on, set up an appointment in that link, and we'd love to partner up with you. Garth Ward, you just offered so much value to so many agents. Agents, this is a challenge. Don't just listen to this and sit on the sidelines. Listen to this and take massive action. Garth, do you have any other words of advice?
Yes, take the massive action. I can tell you, when I first started my real estate brokerage, I didn't know if a single agent wanted to work for me. I was producing a lot, but I had no clue if people would listen to what I had to say. And I found out that the first agents that wanted to join me were failing in the business, never closed a deal, young, couldn't close a deal. And I'll just give you 2 basic examples. One that had been in the business for a year and a half at 2 separate brokerages, never closed a deal. Another one at a very large brokerages for almost 2 years, never closed a deal. Held open houses every single weekend, never got a single deal. The next year, respectively, one made over $430,000, the other made $620,000. And the one at 430 did it only by open houses after having held open houses for 2 years straight, never getting a deal. And then the other one had a combination where it was over $250,000 made just from open houses, and the other parts were some of the other trainings that we do.
So agents, if you could turn open houses into a weekly repeatable system, then you definitely will change your life in the next 12 months. And both Garth and myself would love to help you do that. Click on the link below. We'd love to partner with you, and we'll hope to see you on the next video.